Awesome. Well, we are live. Super excited to get into this. And Seth, thanks for joining, man. I really appreciate it. And you've got a wealth of experience that I think would be useful to several ministries, churches, and anything in between. And really, I mean, probably some businesses too, from a standpoint of just the operational efficiencies that you've put together. And so would love to kind of just get started by you doing a brief introduction of yourself, who you are, how you got to where you are, and what you do.
Yeah, thanks. So I'm Seth, executive pastor of operations at Victory, and um, I've been at Victory since I was like 8. So it's been really cool to grow up there and get a lot of experience. And because of volunteering and serving through the church, I got where I am today. And my path wasn't directly to staff. I had some years of volunteering. I worked at Sight and Sound for a good 7 years. And then in 2018 came full time over to Victory to focus more on the business end of the church. And so it's been fun, and it's been through networking and relationships and just being willing to fail and screw things up and then figuring out how to fix the things I screwed up. So it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, I was just having a conversation with a friend of mine today at breakfast, and he and I were talking about how all the failures are what eventually help you get the confidence to know that you're moving forward in the right direction.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah,
for sure.
that's super cool. Yeah, what
It's very
what was
often that like I fix something and they're
yeah,
like, "How'd you know how to do that?" I'm like, "Well, I honestly broke it 2 years ago," and
yeah,
so then I learned all the things about it.
yeah. That's totally especially in the IT world. I know you kind of see operations as well as IT and several things
Yeah,
in between. But obviously the IT piece, there's a lot of things that can break. And so
yeah,
when they do,
and
you
you can break a lot of things. It's great.
yeah, absolutely. What's been your favorite part of it? Do you enjoy more of kind of the IT side of things or the business operations sort of side of things, or what's kind of your most enjoyable piece out of that?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm a solutions guy. So like I enjoy when something is broken, I love figuring out how to make it better. And so I am the weird guy that like I love walking into like fire situations. Like I love it when things are like send me to the place that's most broken.
Yeah,
And I love it because I love fixing it and I love the feeling of once it's fixed and stable and moving forward in a better direction, like I really thrive in that environment. And so um, it's a lot of my journey in my career has been like, I'm going to go help this department that was struggling, or I'm going to go step into this thing because no one else could figure it out. Like, I have this weird pleasure in surviving in the chaos. And
yeah,
I feel like it's one of the things that God gifted me for. And it is so like you could put that across a lot of scenarios. You could put that across IT, you could put that across finance, facilities, even pastoring at a church. Like, I love solving problems. And so that's really what drove me. I happened to be good at technology. And so a lot of solving problems came through the technology field. But I wouldn't say that I like pursued IT or operations for any other reason other than I enjoy figuring things out and solutions and making someone's life better out of it. And so it's a lot of fun.
yeah, yeah. That's super cool. And for myself, I'm more of like a starter. I like to get projects
Okay.
going and then pass it on. Would
Yes.
you consider yourself more of like, I like to take it as it's in progress, complete it, and see it through, or do you just kind of oversee the whole process? You love every part of it.
No, I wish I could oversee the whole process. I relate to you. Like I'm very much an activator. Like it's actually one of my downfalls. Like I get bored easily. So like I love jumping into chaos. I love figuring it out. I love sorting it out. I love setting it in the right direction. And then it gets to this point where I'm like, okay, it's running smoothly. I'm bored. What do I do next?
Yeah,
And sometimes that's bad. Like sometimes it's good to just stay and be consistent and where you're at. But unfortunately, that's not 100% how I'm wired. So
yeah, I totally
I
get
like to
it.
get it through the chaos and then pass it off to someone who's really good at maintaining things moving forward. And so it's a leadership lesson I've definitely had to take to heart a lot over the last few years is the people that I bring around me. I have to make sure like I can't have a team of activators because
Yeah.
someone's got to finish the projects and someone's got to keep it going. So
Yeah.
making sure that there's some people around me who enjoy getting things across the finish line and enjoy just the stability of maintaining. It's been important
Yeah.
because I'm not the best. Some of my worst moments are things that like I started gung ho and just didn't have the energy to get it 100%.
Yeah. Yeah. I can't tell you how many projects I have just lingering out there ready for me to finish. To go to something else. But I guess that really shows the importance of a team. And I think
Hmm.
obviously in ministry, it's more important than ever. And I know you guys have a pretty interesting setup as far as how you operate from an internal standpoint, uh, notably with the reliance on volunteering and actually
Yeah.
having everybody contribute. You and I already talked a little bit about that, but I'd be interested for the rest of anybody watching this, kind of what that looks like, if you could sort of describe the way that you guys approach that and how you execute on it, because it's very
Yeah.
different than most churches.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, that's actually been like it's been a lot of fun to figure out over the last few years. And so yeah, at Victory we have 7 locations. We just launched our 7th location in October, and we have it's we are a multi-site streaming model. So we are our pastoring comes from our broadcast location through a stream. We just have live worship and a host at a location, and then they pull that in. And so we're very technology forward. We have a lot of that, but we actually only have one, and technically 1.5. We have a full time and a part timer who's responsible for the technology across all 7 locations, and that's actually how the whole business department is structured. Like we have one finance director for all 7. We have one facilities director for all 7, one broadcast coordinator. Like so, um, and then from there we lean on volunteers for everything else. And so, a lot of my department, a lot of times, has to figure out solutions that are either super automated and can be handled internally by one person and a team of volunteers, or things that are simple and stable enough that we can put at a location and we know that it will thrive and be okay, even though there's not someone consistently maintaining it all the time because he has to split his time across 7 locations. And so, if that really, we have to keep that in the forefront for every conversation we have when it comes to putting something new in place. So, we had talked a little bit about this. Some of that, even like, it really impacts the choice of our gear too, because we have to make sure that every piece of gear we put in can be remotely managed. Because there's not, we can only be in one place at one time on a Sunday. And if 3 things go wrong, we're trying to balance how do we remote in and fix these 3 things. And so, um, we definitely use a lot more computer based stuff than other places because we can remote in and fix things. And we've actually had some pretty cool success with that too, of being able to like remote in and see what they're seeing and fix it. Even on the production side, which, people in the IT world are fairly used to that. Like
yeah.
remote management's been around for a long time, remoting the computers, network management, but like, you don't always think about remote management when it comes to AV and production. And so having to put in equipment that can be remotely managed, just like an IT network, has been a fun journey for us over the last 3 years. And our technology director, Adam Giesman, is so smart. And he really cares about making things simple for volunteers. And so he's done so much research and has done a great job picking solutions that he can manage remotely, or are so simple to manage that the volunteers can even do it inconsistently throughout the year. It's a huge part of our decision making process. Only
Yeah.
having one paid person per department for the whole.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it brings in the intentionality and stewardship piece of like, what are you actually, where is this money going? How is it being used? And
Yeah.
one of the questions I've got too there is, how do you balance? Of course, some of this stuff can be really expensive if you get the quality product that can be remotely managed, or just the quality product that's not going to go down, so you don't have someone bouncing back and forth. How do you balance the cost versus the quality piece? Obviously, the top notch is going to be pretty expensive, but maybe somewhere in between. What does that research process look like?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Adam can speak better into
Yeah.
that process, but again, we lead forward from, um, we've had to change our mindset a little bit, like where we used to be able to do things pretty cheap. Like, again, Adam is super smart. And so he's able to we started locations that we would have never been able to start without him, because he was able to figure out how to do something pretty extravagant on like no money. Like, it was pretty cool. But as we made the decision to really lean on volunteers and not necessarily have staff people, because we started our multi-site journey with every location would get a paid production person. And then once we were 4 in, we made the pivot to how can we manage this centrally and have volunteers who are gifted at doing that do it well, and not necessarily need to spend the money on that staff position. And so he's had to change the type of equipment that he picks. And it did change the cost, because sometimes for better, sometimes for worse. Like, some things were like, I would say our lighting console is an example of, you could spend a lot more money on lighting consoles than we do, but because we need the computer side of being able to remote in and troubleshoot things for them, like, we've chosen to use a computer-based lighting console instead of or something. And so that's an example of a cheaper solution. But from an audio standpoint, we had to we spent a little bit more money on a console that we wanted, that we could remote in, that like a location of 200 people probably didn't need this level of console. But because we didn't pay a production person, and because we needed to be able to remote in, like, we put an $8,000 console at this location because we needed to be able to remote in and support it. And so on both sides of the coin, it impacts the decision, because really we're making decisions on how can we remote support and how can we run this department with volunteers. And so on both sides of the coin, it affects the money conversation.
Yeah. And I think about all the intangibles, and as well as like even just the financial aspect of how much you've saved by going with something that's able to be remotely managed or more premium. Because when you think about that, and if you got someone driving to 7 campuses, or if you've got volunteers that are frustrated with equipment that's not working, you think about the morale of the individuals that are giving their time to serve, or even are employed and are giving their time in that way. Of course, it's frustrating when things don't work, and it becomes really challenging. I mean, I'm sure everybody listening to this has been at a job where they didn't have the right tools to get the job done. And when you don't have that, it sucks. It's really, really painful. So I think that's great. And I think the other thing too is it's really cool how you love the congregation well by giving them the opportunity to provide their time, talents, and treasures to give, and to offer, some of the gifts that they have to the ministry. And I'm curious on some of the ways that you encourage people in their identity in Christ, and encourage people to give and serve in that way. How do you guys approach that from a volunteer standpoint? Because there's a lot of work that needs to be done, quite frankly. Campuses.
We try really hard, and we don't always succeed at this. Like, I feel like this is definitely one of those conversations where like we try our best, and we've had good seasons of success, and then we've had seasons where we've not done well. But we really try to walk alongside people and understand their giftings and what excites them, and what does God wire them to do. And we try really hard not to stand up on stage and say, hey, our kids department is down 20 people. We just need 20 heads to fill in. Like, we try really hard not to fill holes. We try really hard to put people in places where they're thriving, because then they become your best advocates. Like, the people who are gifted to do it, the people who feel called to it, like, they're going to promote kids ministry naturally themselves, and they're going to get people to recruit into kids ministry. And same with production and worship. Like, the people who are wired to do production and the people who want to do it, like, they're going to work the hardest. They're going to care the most, because it's what God's gifted them to do. And so we've gone through seasons where we've done both. And like, every time it's played out where when we figure out a gifting and plug them into their gifting, the story is way more successful than when we say, oh crap, we're down 20 people, we just need to find 20 bodies. You might get one out of those 20 that end up being a really great fit for that role. And then you put all that effort into trying to get 20 people in. And so
Yeah.
um, it really comes from, we have this thing called Growth Track. A lot of churches have something similar where you learn about the church, you learn about your gifting and your serve
Right.
opportunities. And we coach our staff and our high-level volunteers that even if kids ministry is down 20 people, if that person doesn't have the gift, it's not going to help move the
Totally.
ball forward. And so we need to lean in on giftings and plugging them in and continuing to develop those gifts even when they're in the department that they are most gifted for. So, but again, we've learned that sometimes you learn things the hard way. Like we've gone through seasons where we've tried to just say, hey, we need 80 people, let's go.
Yeah.
And sometimes that hill is harder to take than just casting the vision for, hey, here's the opportunities we have. Here's how jumping into these opportunities could help move the community forward. Now you figure out where your gifts align in that, and we'd love to help you.
Yep.
We've done some really cool stuff with less people when they identify that this is how I'm gifted and this is how I'm wired, than when we try to just go after heads.
Yeah. Yeah. I think finding the right person, and that feels similar to the philosophy on like the type of solutions you're using at each location.
Yeah.
Like find the quality rather than the quantity. Find the people that actually care
Right.
about what they're doing, because it may be
Made the
a strong
mistakes.
fit in one area. So
Yeah. We've made the mistakes. Like we've bought the $100 lights instead of the $500 lights,
yeah,
and then had to replace them 5 times in 2
yeah,
years. So we should have just bought the $200 light to begin with. Like
yeah,
we've done that. So for any church out there that's done that, like we've done that. We've learned our lesson. And I'm not even going to sit here today and tell you that we're not tempted to do that sometimes, because there's just some things that are just like, oh my gosh, that's a big price tag to swallow. I'm not
yeah,
sure we're quite there.
yeah,
But we try to lean in on like, yeah, but every time we make that cheap choice, it ends up biting us somehow. Like,
yeah, yeah. And it does. It's the same thing with people. Like you have your gifts, you have something that you're called to do, and if you're in the wrong spot, it's not good for either you
yeah,
or the church. It's just you're filling a seat at that point,
yeah,
and you're not using the full capacity of what you've been given. Everybody has something so unique to offer, which is really
right.
cool. So
Well, you feel good for a little bit. Like
yeah,
I've stepped into those holes before where like
yeah,
they just needed help and I wasn't gifted, but I had a little bit of a hero complex. So I stepped in to help because I wanted to get it across the finish line. And
yep,
in every scenario, like I would get frustrated or bored after a couple of months because it's not what I'm wired to do. And so the hero complex only lasts for a little bit in that scenario. And then you get to the point of like, yeah, I don't really enjoy this. Why am I doing this?
yeah,
And then you frustrate. Not only is it hard for you, but it's hard for the leader that has to lead that, because now I just solved the problem for 2 months, but now it's a problem again because I really wasn't the solution. I was a band-aid.
yep.
And that's hard.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I like that. I think that that's a great way for a great takeaway for anybody watching this, as far as like churches that are growing,
Mm.
even churches that are struggling to find like that kind of help, which is almost every church. I mean, like,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, that's a universal issue. So
Amen.
yeah, but okay, yeah. Well, a pivot from that too. Um, you are in sort of a leadership role to make decisions and whatnot. And I'm curious from a standpoint of maybe an IT director who
Mm.
comes to their operations director, for example, or anybody in any sort of position at a church, whatever it is, who needs some sort of a what you'd call like a business decision made. How can they provide you with the most accurate, best, and I guess most helpful information so that a decision can be made? Like, let's say someone needs new gear, or let's say someone needs help, with a volunteer on, how to approach something that came up. What are what are the ways that I guess people should be offering that information to leadership in the most effective manner?
Yeah. I mean, the thing that I get drawn to pretty quickly is I appreciate when my team comes and they've already thought through 2 or 3 solutions, and it's
Yeah,
not just, hey, I have this problem. Do you have any thoughts? I always have thoughts. Like
Yeah.
that's also a downfall sometimes for me. Like I always have thoughts, but um, anytime that they've thought through, like, hey, here's three different solutions. Like here's if we do this solution, it causes this outcome. If we do this solution, it causes this outcome. Um, I mean, 9 times out of 10, we're always going to pick the solution that makes the user experience better, or
Yeah.
it simplifies a process. I'm not a huge fan of making a process for process's sake. Like, I want these things to be as simple as possible,
Yeah.
because we're dealing with people who don't wake up and think about this every day. Like we in the church world, like we think about it every day. We wake up, we deal with it every day, we process it. A couple extra steps don't bother us sometimes, but like we're trying to steward and lead people to take steps in areas that they don't think about every day. Like no one, like not a lot of our volunteers are waking up on Monday morning thinking about like how I'm going to make the audio process better or how I'm going to make the
Yeah.
computer like, but we are.
Yeah.
So we just, however we can make it simple, keep it simple. I also, my team knows that like I want to see solutions that are sustainable and I'm not going to have to revisit in a year.
Yeah.
Like, let's, I'd actually rather wait. And again, this is a lesson I learned the hard way because I used to not be this way. But like, I'd rather wait and not do it, like, until we can afford the right solution than like, well, let's just put this in place. We're going to have to fix it again in a year, but at least it gets us by for a year. Like, I'd
Yeah.
rather just wait a year and get the right solution so that way it's good for 5 years
Yeah.
than like, we're going to have to do this and then we'll do this in a year and then we'll do this in a year. And this will probably break at some point. So we'll just like, let's steer away from those conversations as much as possible, because we are stretched pretty thin of, we got like, I don't want Adam, my tech director, to go put a piece of equipment into he's going to have to fix every other week. Like, no one's got time for that. And those are great examples of times where like it actually ends up being worse for us when we put a cheaper solution in because one, we spent money that we could have just saved towards the right solution,
Yep.
and then now we have to maintain it for a year or two,
Yeah.
and it just ends up being more costly than like not doing it at all and not having that problem for a year, and then like, okay, we're putting the right thing in and now it's going to be okay for a few years and I don't have to think about it.
Yeah. Yeah. In summary, I guess I'd put it into some alliteration. It almost sounds like 3 S's, like suggestions, simple, and sustainable is kind of how that sounds. Like bring some suggestions of what could be done, keep it as simple as possible, and make sure it's sustainable in the long run.
Right. I think the church world has this habit, and I think I definitely freak some people out sometimes because I think, the stewardship word gets thrown out a lot in church world, and it's often in the lens of finance,
Yeah.
and it's often through the lens of we just need to spend as little money as possible. And I I learned pretty early on in my life from a mentor that like stewardship is definitely more than money. Stewardship is how we respond to all the resources God has entrusted us with,
Yep.
which is people, time, money, all of those scenarios. And so oftentimes you do end up spending a little bit more money for the right stewardship solution because this solution made it simpler for people and it saved time. And so, yes, I spent a little money here, but I saved 8 hours a week and this person doesn't have to think about it anymore. And so stewardship is way more holistic than just money. But oftentimes I catch churches and I catch myself sometimes being like, let's just go with the cheap one because we don't have this money. Or people will tell you that it was bad stewardship because you spent X amount of money on equipment and they don't understand the time in the background it saved or the amount of people that we got to not have to have frustrated in the process because we chose this more expensive piece of equipment. I often remind us, and I say us because I have to remind myself, I often remind us in the church world that the cheapest solution isn't necessarily the best stewardship decision. But it's very, very, very common in the church world for that to be thrown out as the first argument against something of like, well, we got to be good stewards of our money. So let's pick the cheap one.
Yeah. Yeah. I've definitely seen that several times. And we've built Lamb on the idea of like and this was actually a good friend of mine, ended up kind of burning this into my brain. It was a long story, but I was out doing some yard work for someone, with a friend of mine from church, and we were talking about how we should just do a little bit extra and do it to the glory of God. And so we built
Right.
Lamb on top of 1 Corinthians 10:31, that whether you eat or drink or whatever you do it all to the glory of God. And so we try to do everything to the glory of God. And I feel like that's the ultimate level of stewardship. It's not, let's do it to the cheapest we can,
Yeah.
to the glory of God. And how does that look? So, yeah. And sometimes, oftentimes you can still, save some money on solutions
Yeah.
that you're working with. And sometimes it's better than the one you had before.
Yep.
That's certainly happened. We find that
I've had some of those scenarios too. Yeah.
yeah. And it's just a matter of looking and checking out and seeing what's available. But so it's not to say that you can't find something that's less expensive that would still, operate under good stewardship. But yeah, certainly it doesn't mean that you have to go with the cheapest option every time.
Right.
So yeah, that's cool. Well, as we kind of get towards the end of time here, I want to ask, I guess, a couple more questions. Number one, if you're comfortable with it, how can people connect with you if they've got questions about, how to operate a church, for example, or a ministry, and what suggestions you might have? And number two, any final thoughts that you would want to share with the audience that might be watching this? So.
Yeah, totally comfortable. You can feel free to email me. It's just my name, so seth.barstow@victorychurch.org. Love to help you out, and I'm on LinkedIn as well, so happy to connect with you there. I think a general piece of success that we've had at Victory with the way that we've modeled, that I think is just a good thing for people to process, is anytime we come up against a problem or something where we're tempted to make a hire, we always try to process through, like, do we need to make this hire, or do we need to fix the system or the piece of technology that's running it before we make the hire? Because that's a lot of how, like, we're just starting at 7 to feel some tensions of like, we probably need to bring an extra person to help technology. But like, we got to 7, and I'm not going to tell you there weren't pain points. There was a few learning curve pain points that we had to work through, but we've not felt like overworked. It's just now at that 7 to 8 to 9 threshold where we're like, we probably need to bring in another full-timer there to help. But we went pretty far without making a hire before we started feeling that tension. It's because we looked at the solutions and the software and the technology first. And then, like, okay, now there's enough work here where we need to process that. But that really helps with stewardship and finances too, because there's a lot longer of a legacy commitment to a full-time hire than there is the right technology solution or the right automation. And so we've done some pretty cool things with processes where, like, we used to have a couple people and now it's just a process or something like that. And so it's always that question that comes up with us is a hire the right thing to do, or am I robbing an opportunity for someone to fix this problem?
Yeah. That's awesome. I love that. Well, like I said at the beginning, I knew you'd have a wealth of experience to offer. So I'm really appreciative of you jumping on, and appreciative of everything you're doing for the kingdom, and all the knowledge that you've shared. So thanks for joining today. And like I said, just very thankful for you.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was fun.
Awesome.